Okay, let's unpack this.
Hmm.
We're taking a deep dive today into, well, a really remarkable section of ancient law. It's Exodus chapter 22.
Right. And it's surprising just how much ground it covers in one chapter, isn't it?
It really is. Property, crime, social stuff, religious duties. It's all
Yeah.
in there. So our mission really is to dig in and see what insights we can pull out.
And what always strikes me is the specificity. It's not just broad strokes. It gives these really concrete rules for,
Hmm.
everyday situations. Tells you a lot about their values.
Absolutely. And it jumps straight into the practical side, starting with laws about property, theft, and exactly what you owe if you get caught.
Exactly. Like, think about this. You steal an ox or a sheep, and then you sell it or slaughter it. The payback isn't just one for one.
No, it's way more.
Right. 5 oxen back for the stolen ox, 4 sheep back for the stolen sheep. So you have to wonder about that multiplier and why the difference between the animals.
That's a great question. Is it just economic value? Or maybe the impact of losing, say, a working ox was seen as greater? It definitely feels like more than just replacement costs.
It does.
Yeah.
But then, look, if the stolen animal, ox, donkey, sheep, whatever, is found alive with the thief,
Then the penalty changes.
yes, significantly,
Yeah.
then it's just double restitution.
Yeah.
So being caught before you've, let's say, disposed of the goods, it lessens the penalty.
Which makes a certain kind of sense, I suppose. Easier recovery, maybe?
Could be. Or maybe it reflects the thief's intent or the finality of the loss. There's also that rule about catching a thief breaking in at night.
Oh, right. If you strike them and they die, no blood guilt.
But if it happens after sunrise,
Then there's guilt. So daytime versus nighttime makes a huge difference in how lethal force is viewed.
it draws a very clear line based on the circumstances and, presumably, the perceived level of threat. And what if the thief just has nothing? No way to pay back.
That's a stark one. The law says they must be sold to pay for their theft.
An intense outcome. It really shows the seriousness of property rights, but also the economic realities.
And the detail keeps coming. Liability for damage. Like if your animals wander off.
Hmm. If your livestock get into your neighbor's field or vineyard and eat the crops.
You have to make it right.
Yes, and specifically, it says you have to pay them back from the best part of your own field or vineyard, not just any old patch.
Interesting. So quality matters in restitution too. And what about fire?
Ah, yeah. If you start a fire, maybe burning thorn bushes, and it spreads and burns your neighbor's grain or their whole field,
You're on the hook for it.
absolutely. The person who started the fire has to pay for all the damage. Clear responsibility there.
Okay, so that covers direct theft and damage, but then it moves into something else, into situations involving trust, like leaving things with a neighbor.
Right, safekeeping and borrowing. This whole section is really about community trust and, well, what happens legally when things go wrong with property that's temporarily in someone else's hands?
So if I give you, say, silver or some goods to look after, and they get stolen from your house.
If the thief is caught, they pay back double. Same principle as finding the stolen animal alive.
Okay, but the tricky part is, what if the thief isn't found?
Now, this is fascinating. The person you entrusted the goods to, the owner of the house, they have to go before the judges.
And do what?
Swear an oath.
Yeah.
An oath before God, essentially, that they didn't misappropriate the goods.
So the oath acts as proof of innocence when there's no other evidence?
It seems so. It's
Yeah.
a solemn declaration. And the judges are also where you settle disputes about who rightfully owns something that was maybe lost and then found an animal, clothes, whatever.
And if someone's found guilty of wrongly keeping something?
They pay double to the rightful owner. That double restitution theme keeps popping up.
It does. Now, what about animals specifically left for safekeeping? If an animal dies, or gets injured, or disappears when no one's watching?
Similar situation with the oath. The neighbor who was supposed to be watching it takes an oath before God that they weren't responsible, that they didn't harm or take it.
And if they take the oath?
They don't have to pay restitution. The oath settles it, assuming it wasn't negligence or theft by them.
But theft by someone else is different.
Yes. If the animal was actually stolen while in the neighbor's care, then the neighbor does have to pay the owner back.
Okay, so they're responsible for preventing theft, it seems. But wait, there's an exception. Wild animals.
Exactly. If the animal was attacked and killed by a wild beast, the neighbor can bring the remains, the carcass, or parts of it, as proof.
Evidence.
Right. If they can show it was a wild animal attack, they don't have to pay. The evidence clears them.
That makes sense. Physical proof versus just an oath. What about borrowing animals?
The rules shift again. If you borrow an animal and it gets hurt or dies while you have it, and the owner isn't there with you,
then you, the borrower, have to pay.
full restitution.
If
But
the owner was present when it happened.
then the borrower is off the hook. No payment needed.
So the owner's presence changes everything, and hired animals.
If it was a hired animal, the assumption is the higher fee covers the risk of loss. So no extra payment required if it dies or gets injured.
It's quite nuanced, isn't it? Depending on who's present, whether money changed hands, it really affects liability.
It really does. It suggests different levels of responsibility based on, well, who had control, who was supervising, and what the underlying agreement was.
Okay, shifting gears quite dramatically now. The chapter also lays down some very direct and, let's say, challenging rules about social and sexual behavior.
Yes, these are quite stark. It addresses seduction first. If a man seduces a virgin who isn't pledged to be married,
And sleeps with her.
he's legally required to pay the standard bride price for virgins and marry her.
But what if her father says no, refuses the marriage?
That's the interesting bit. Even if the father forbids the marriage, the man still has to pay that bride price.
So the financial penalty sticks, marriage or not. It's tied to the act itself.
It seems so. Then you get these two really absolute commands with capital punishment attached.
Yeah. Do not allow a sorceress to live.
And anyone who has sexual relations with an animal must be put to death. These point to acts seen as fundamentally violating the social or maybe cosmic order.
And that level of severity carries right over into rules about religious practice.
It does. The text is crystal clear. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed.
That's unambiguous. Total destruction. It's about exclusive loyalty.
Absolutely. It defines the very foundation of their relationship with their God. No other gods allowed, period.
And it gets practical, too. Don't hold back offerings from your harvest, your granaries, your vats.
Right, and that very specific command about giving the firstborn.
Runs, cattle, sheep.
You keep them for 7 days, but on the 8th day, you give them over. It's a powerful symbol, giving the first fruits, acknowledging that life and prosperity come from the divine.
And following all this leads to that declaration, you are to be my holy people.
Yes, holy, meaning set apart, distinct. And this has practical consequences, even in what you eat.
Like the rule about not eating meat from an animal killed by wild beasts.
Exactly. Throw it to the dogs. It's another way they're marked as different, living out that holiness in daily life.
But what's so striking, I think, is how right after some of these really severe laws, the tone shifts towards, well, towards justice and compassion.
That juxtaposition is powerful, isn't it? It's where you really see the ethical heart of this legal code emerge.
Like the command, do not mistreat an alien or oppress him. And the reason given.
For you were aliens in Egypt. It grounds the command in their own history, their own experience of vulnerability. Empathy made law.
Use your past suffering to shape how you treat vulnerable people now. And it names others too.
Do not take advantage of a widow or an orphan. Again, identifying those who are most likely to lack power or protection in that society.
And the warning, if you do mistreat them, is intense.
Incredibly so. It's as if they cry out, God will hear them, God's anger will be aroused, and the threat is basically reciprocal justice. Your own wives will become widows, your children fatherless.
It's not just a fine or a social penalty. It's presented as invoking divine wrath.
Which tells you just how seriously this society, or at least its laws, took the protection of the vulnerable. That ethic extends to economics too, like lending money.
Right. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, what's the rule?
Do not be like a moneylender. Charge him no interest. Lending within the community, especially to the poor, shouldn't be about making a profit. It's about support.
Mutual aid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's that incredibly specific, compassionate rule about taking someone's cloak as collateral for a loan.
You have to give it back by sunset.
Why? Because it might be the only thing they have to keep warm at night, is their bedding.
And the reason given connects right back to the divine character.
Yes. When he cries out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. The human law is explicitly modeled on God's own compassion.
It really drives home that these aren't just random rules. They're presented as stemming from a moral vision, from an understanding of God and community.
Definitely. A vision that includes both strict justice and profound care, especially for those on the margins.
And finally, just to round it out, the chapter ends with a command about respecting authority.
Right. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people.
So it covers relationships between people, care for the vulnerable, duties to God, and now respect for leadership structures, both divine and human.
It provides that sense of order, defining acceptable boundaries, even for speech directed towards those in authority. It kind of completes the societal picture.
So when you step back and look at Exodus 22 as a whole,
Ah,
wow, it's this intricate tapestry: stolen sheep, runaway fires, safekeeping oaths, seduction penalties, religious exclusivity, and these powerful commands for social justice.
it really is. You've got this blend of quite specific, sometimes harsh justice, alongside these explicit, deeply felt mandates to protect the powerless, the alien, widow, orphan, the person needing alone.
It offers such a rich glimpse into how this ancient community tried to structure itself legally and ethically.
And it's far more nuanced than maybe we sometimes assume ancient law to be, with all the different liabilities and the reasons given for the rules.
So, thinking about all these details, the exact restitution amounts, the shifting responsibilities, the mix of severity and compassion, what does this tell us about the kind of society they were trying to build? And maybe more importantly for us, what does it challenge or affirm about our own ideas of justice, community, and responsibility today?